Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and I'm here with my special guest, Chip Tatum. And Chip, you with me?
I'm here.
Excellent. Well, I certainly appreciate being on tonight. And as I blow a gasket in my brain, just over processing and overloading all of this deception and all the crap that's happening here on the timeline, I think Misha actually had a question for you. Misha, you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, Chip. My question was, as far as the destroying of the archives, what's your opinion of why they went into the temples and destroyed everything?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
How ISIS went into and has destroyed all kinds of, Sumerian tablet, all kinds of things, the Sumerian statues and all that. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. When you want to destroy a people and destroy a nationality, that's one of the ways to do it. You look at the book burnings of old. You look at the bringing down the statues in Iraq. It's just a mode of degrading the nationality of a country and of a society.
Okay, because since they are ISIS and trained by our factions of our government, I was just wondering if there was any other motive behind it.
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I know that we would do whatever we could do to try to bring down a sense of nationalism as we would go into a country for regime change, as we around the world. That's and as you look at the New World Order and trying to bring together an international government, doing away with all the individual governments, giving more power to the international courts, giving more strength to the United Nations, and writing new agendas for them. You can see that they're trying to bring down this individualism, nationalism, and try to make it into more of a international and one world nationalism.
Okay, and I guess that kind of goes along with the religion, because this is kind of, in my opinion, what the things that they destroyed, they're just touching on the fact of where they lie in our history, that we have a history with the Sumerians and so I just kind of thought maybe this was kind of a plot, another false flag kind of thing.
Well, you know, even in the United States, they're doing away with history, doing away with the Confederate history. I see probably in the future doing away with the American Revolution history, and just deleting and rewriting everything. So, and if you have monuments, if you have these figures standing out there, then it's a constant reminder, and it's more difficult to rewrite that history.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, changing gears completely, may I ask you a few questions about Vietnam and some of the things that went on over there?
Maybe.
Maybe? All right, maybe. All right. Well, what years were you there?
I was there in 71 and 72 and 73.
Oh,
back and forth.
Okay. Because it played a small part in, well, I shouldn't say Nam, but somebody who came from Nam, who was, I would imagine he was CIA or Special Forces or whatever, who came into my life as a handler, had been over there as supposedly a medic, like Navy Marine corpsman. But I was just wondering what year you were there, because I'd heard a few things about in this would have been in the 67 era. So
yeah, they back in those days, prior to up to and leading to 1969, they were things were a lot less looked at. the media wasn't there, things like that. So a lot could be done. A lot of training could be done, and a lot was done in those years, 65 through 69.
Okay, that makes sense. So now I'd like to ask you just a question on. You're familiar, of course, with what delta, alpha, beta. Can you tell me the difference of those and how they played a part with the whole MK Ultra program?
You know, I wasn't involved with MK Ultra other than delivering people into Springfield for the doctors to work with, a lot of them, and over to New Mexico to the labs there. I can't. So
Okay.
as far as the inner workings of those, I have no idea. I do know that the training was done. General Stubbleborn can talk to that at length, as he was involved in some of that. So.
Oh, okay, okay. And can you say what kind of drugs they use to drug a person to take them to such a place as that?
We would use scopolamine only because it was complete amnesia, but the natural form is scopolamine, not the synthetic form, and it comes from a plant in the mountains of Peru, Bolivia, those areas. It's the trumpet flower, called Reina de la Noche, or Sueños de la Noche, and it was yellow with a red trim. That's the strongest form of the daturum. That the seeds are processed, crushed, and suspended, and what's left is a powder. And that powder is tasteless, odorless, and works within a couple minutes. And you're in complete control of the person that has drugged you. You don't show any overt signs of being drugged, yet you'll do anything that they say. You have absolutely no qualms about doing anything you're told to do. Like in other drugs, like if you're drinking, or you may hold back, but with this drug, you won't hold back on anything. If you're told to do it, you'll do it. If you're asked a question, you'll answer the question, and you'll have complete amnesia when it's all done. I will say that when we use that, we sometimes overdrug people, and it caused some blindness. Collateral damage, is that what you call it?
Oh,
Solaris?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was muted there. Yeah, I was going to ask you, Chip, have you ever been drugged? Did they ever do that to you with scopolamine or anything like that?
Sure, we tested on ourselves, so we knew how it worked.
Oh, geez. So, and when did you wake up? At what point? Was it like a week or so, or how long does it last?
No, the drug only lasts a few hours, and they videotaped what we were doing.
Oh, geez.
Showed it.
What a mess.
Be a monkey, be a chimpanzee. It was nothing crude, folks. But
was it like ayahuasca at all, or no?
No.
Okay, so it's not like that. It's not that kind of a drug, right?
No.
Okay.
The person doesn't even have any feeling of being high. They're just totally controllable.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I remember was my mouth was real dry afterwards, so that was about it.
Yeah, right. So is there a method in which they can continually keep somebody, well, I guess this would probably be, a method that they can continually keep somebody maybe drugged and such for long periods of time? What would they use?
Scopolamine, the maximum time we've used was 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, but beyond that, a lot of input can be put into a person's mind. A lot can be put in there in that 2 weeks. So I don't know that you need a whole lot more than that to get a person brainwashed. Mind control is basically you take away everything that they have, and you restructure it, and that can be done within a couple months. But you can get the onset, you can get it a good beginning within that first 2 weeks.
Because I don't want to take time. I just want to say that I was drugged. Well, anyway, I won't go into how I was drugged, but I know I was drugged, and I was actually gone for 8 months out of my memory. And I even got married, walked down the aisle, had a wedding, had my handler was my husband, and it was. So I just wondered how they could do that and for that long a period, especially when you say scopolamine only lasts for a couple of weeks.
Well, there's other mind control techniques other than having the drug. So
right.
Yeah. So they work into the hypnotherapy and the other treatment, the other kinds of treatments and things like that. Of course, there's DID. They do that too.
Electroshock is one of their
yes,
big.
It is.
They've graduated to psychotronic programming and electronic warfare and synthetic telepathy and all that jazz.
But back in the days, I think when she's talking about that, a lot of that wasn't in place. It's great now. It's good stuff now. But
thanks, Chip. We'll talk about that off air sometime. Been there, done that. Got the T-shirt and the hat with the artificial telepathy, my friend. So,
we were the guinea pigs for the psychotronics now. We were the guinea pigs for that.
Yeah, early test pilots, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
well, it's a miracle you survived on that one. Did you have any other questions, Misha? I was going to just ask a quick question here. Okay, those are awesome questions, and I appreciate that. And if you have anything else, please add. Just chime in here. I was going to ask you a little bit about these quote-unquote lists, Chip, that everybody's all paranoid about. They talk about the red list, the blue list, this list, that list. Obviously, everybody's being monitored and watched and under surveillance to some degree with national security and everything else. What's your impression of these quote-unquote lists, and how critical are they?
The lists have been around a long time, and we're all on a list. Everyone's on a list. Every one of you listening here is on a list. The people that live next door to you are on a list. Now, which list? It's hard to say, and you're not going to know which list you're on. But if you're active and outspoken, you can bet you're on on a separate list than the majority of the people of the United States.
The special list, isn't that nice? So what kind of lists are we talking about? Are they described as color coded? I mean, is there a red? Is there a blue? Or high profile, high target, or anything like that?
Well, we just called them a class A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
And we call them class A, B, and C targets, not lists.
Which one is the most severe?
A.
Okay. What about levels? What about threat levels? Does that have anything to do with your classification?
No. I'm not sure how they would classify them, but as we look at our threat targets.
Okay. What's a level 3? Have you ever heard of a level 3 threat before?
No.
Okay. Just curious.
And it could be a level 3 list, a level 3 target, a level 3 threat. It's just new wording.
I was just curious. That was mentioned about me one time. So always want to know. That's for darn sure. Yeah.
Your level 1s are the ones with firsthand knowledge.
Okay, so level 3 is not as bad.
Your A list are people with firsthand knowledge that could do harm, could to national security. Your level 2 become the terrorists. Funny how that works. So and level 3 are people who are active.
Oh, that's
very, very, very active and have how do they split that? Have influence.
Ah, okay.
Influential. Yeah.
Very good. Oh, that must be very flattering for me. Okay. Well, who maintains this list?
Now the fusion centers have them.
Fusion. And who runs the fusion centers?
Fusion centers are, a lot of people think the fusion centers are where you're going to be taken to in times to come, but they're not. The fusion centers, they're major fusion centers set up around the United States, and then there are minor fusion centers. And your certain major metropolitan areas have the district centers or the regional centers, fusion centers, and they're made up of local law enforcement, the FBI, the CIA, Homeland Security, and American Red Cross. I mean, I was taken into one, so I got to spend a couple hours in one. And I think I was taken there and put in their glass conference room so I could see everything that was going on. And they have the monitors on the wall. You see where they have the DHS and Homeland Security and FEMA centers always on monitor. The big units out in Virginia and other parts of the world where they have real-time monitoring going on in those facilities that will actually house political leaders and so forth in times of need.
Right. And when you say they're doing real-time monitoring, is that through the satellite-driven technology, surveillance cameras, obviously internet, and possibly maybe interconnection with brain links?
Yeah, I had purchased from the government their equipment that it ended up being from one of these fusion centers, and they're putting all new in, and they were actually moving to a larger facility. And I saw the computer room. Back in the old days, a computer room was almost a whole building with all the old tape stuff. Now, touches of information are held in one little chip, and these one little chips they were getting rid of and putting all new equipment in that could hold 1,000 times, 1,000, even 1,000,000 times, I would say, the amount of data that they were processing. So they were actively processing from several data sources around the world, including they were hooked into NSA. They were all actively. People weren't just sitting there reading the USA Today. They were actively working on something.
Mm-hmm. Right. That makes sense. Well, with the technology today, there's no way you can lose anybody. If they really want to triangulate someone and track them, there's even these quote unquote terrorists, there's no way they can lose them. I mean, obviously. Or can they?
All cell phones have GSA chips or have chips in them that can be triangulated. So they'll always know if they have your cell phone number, then the IMEI, they will always be able to track you.
Right. And of course, those can be hacked easy enough by anybody, too. That's another thing, I'm sure.
Sure, especially if you have your Wi-Fi open, and you're local. But, that has to be close. It's not as easy as you think to hack a cell phone, especially now. A lot of them are being built with crypto in them. And, direction finding on them, you can put a small app in there and anyone can find you as long as they have the other end of the app. But the government entities can track a cell phone, any cell phone, and that's because in 2002, 3 or 4, I think it's 2004, the manufacturers were required to put a tracking chip into each cell phone.
Interesting. And all that's coming out of China pretty much, right?
China, Japan, Taiwan, yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's just one big fiasco, isn't it? Insofar as the New World Order goes, everybody hears a lot about the quote-unquote New World Order, but really, what does it boil down to in the end of ends, in the end game? Is it this supreme subhuman 1% that's there running the world with transhumanism, or the way it looks right now, are these Islamic crazy daisies here just to basically be the pawns on the chessboard, and then at some point in the continuum they're collateral damage and they get wiped out too? I mean, what is the agenda with that?
You hit it on the button right there. That's
right.
Exactly what the agenda. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
I mean, they're just pawns. They're just being used, but. Right. They think that they're running things, and they're letting them think that. So
right. Well, they're expendable at some point, but then again, at what expense and suffering? Because by the time they become expendable, they've wiped out a huge amount of people here.
Well, yeah.
Unless people.
And then that's part of the agenda. Less people. When you look at a social order, less people to have to handle.
Right. And if they're out of control, obviously, then that's a problem for those of us who don't sit there and go with the game. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You just don't need those around.
Well, it's unfortunate. I'm on the wrong planet. I've said it before. I should be off world if this is the kind of crap coming down here. But I'll tell you, insofar as like these, a lot of people get nervous about an intrusion or something happening to them, an invasion that happens in the middle of the night, or something where they're going to be taken away. But you said for sure that there's no FEMA camp association with this. There's none of this. We're going to come take you away. I think they just pretty much take people out. And now that they have these people strategically positioned, it's more about just having them all get taken down, maybe even randomly. What would you say?
Slowly but surely, I'd say, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so it doesn't peak the grid to people.
Yeah, it's kind of like a flock of sheep, and they just get picked off one by one or something.
Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's there's no hurry. There has been no hurry. They're doing it very methodically, and that's how we worked before. We worked very methodically in taking care of business. If we put a rush on things, then inevitably there would be errors involved. So they've learned to be very methodical, take it nice and slow. It will happen, and let it happen in a organized manner.
Right.
Where you can dictate the outcome of for every operation, for every maneuver, there's going to be a counter maneuver. There's going to be reaction to it, and you never know what that is. So you have to be very methodical and very liquid with what the directions you're willing to go.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. Well, how would the New World Order benefit? I mean, obviously, okay, so they wipe everybody out. They don't have a lot to deal with as far as people that might give them a problem or a challenge. So what's left? Them and their BS and their billion-dollar corruption and them playing king of the world and the illusion of, that's really the outcome of it? Or is it resources? Okay.
It's power and resources. Yeah, it's power, and those who are left here will be reprogrammed. The MK Ultra is a programming.
Yeah, re-education is what they call it, or do they call it reprogramming?
We called it reprogramming back then, but they've had a lot of politic-speak changing a lot of the vocabulary.
Yeah, I noticed that. They call it re-education now, which reminds me of the old days in the German camps or the Nazis and whatever. But yeah, really interesting there. Are you familiar too much with the recent mind control programs that are being operated and deployed? Obviously, there's a lot with tactical hardware and electronic warfare, psychotronic warfare. I don't know if that's your area or not, or if you had any exposure to that.
Only what the general has told me, and firsthand knowledge, no. But
okay.
I do have friends at MacDill, high-ranking officers who talked a little bit about their electronic warfare.
Okay, but that's nothing you can talk about.
No, I shouldn't. No,
that's all right. I was just curious.
If I talk too much about it, it would probably expose who I was speaking to, and
that's okay. I don't want to do that to you. I appreciate it though. I do, and I know enough about it anyway. I've been there. So okay. Let's see here. So really what we're looking at here is a critical space for America right now on the timeline. Is there any kind of solution? I mean, we talk about being a prepper. We talk about having a firearm, being prepared, possibly moving to a safer location. Canada's sounding really good to me right now, or maybe even south of the border. I don't know, but it seems like this is a very, it's going to be very dangerous to be here in the next, I'd say maybe next 6 months to a year. So is there any solution or is there a remedy for this?
I would say, Solaris, your larger inner cities are going to be gridded out because that's where a lot of it will take place. Then you have those who are living out away, who have a lot of influence. They should be careful and probably should move. That's why I moved. And I can't. They put me in a position that I can't defend myself. I can't own a firearm in the United States. So down here, I'm well equipped.
I can't believe they did that to you. And that's another thing that's coming down the pike. Everybody's obviously concerned about maintaining their firearms, first of all, and also people being put on quote unquote lists. If they stand up and are counted in any way, they're going to get put on a list and they're not able to purchase a firearm when they actually need one.
Yeah. And I mean, if someone were to attack my family with a firearm, I were to take the firearm away from them and defending my family, I would go back. I would go to prison for touching a firearm. So, even though it's not mine. So it was time for me. I saw the writing on the wall. They don't want me there. I don't want to be there. So
I don't blame you.
So, I fought for my country. I fought in the defense of my country, and I caused part of the problem that's there now. I'm sorry for that. But when I was able to get away, and get out of that business, I got out and spoke about it. You know, a lot of people listen. A lot of people don't listen. And I'm sorry that you aren't listening, because you who are not listening are in for a hell of a surprise.
I agree. I consider it to be life and death at this point in the continuum. I think it's fight or flight, and it's obviously. I believe that this is it. This is the end game playing out here, and that people need to be prepared. I'm not paranoid. I'm just watching it as situation awareness. And every time I hear you speak, it just confirms everything to me. And I do want to say thank you for serving our country. And you know, we don't blame you for anything. I appreciate you coming forward. You know, there are a lot of good people who do things on the timeline here, and they think they're fighting the good fight, and I think you have to some point. But man, it just seems like a snake pit, Chip. I mean, it gets uglier and uglier, and it's just becoming this maelstrom of what I want to call it an infestation of something, man. It just seems so evil and so wicked and so vile. You know, everything is about sensationalism to some degree, but then you see the way these people are treating and butchering, decapitating people, all for the drama, all for the theater, desensitizing people to some degree. But, you know, I think it boils down to, are you going to fight or are you going to flight? You know, are you going to fly away and, you know, that sort of thing. So, I know I'm rambling for a second there, but. Yeah.
No, I agree. And, you know, a lot of the Islamic tactics, taking off of the head, is from the Old Testament. So there are scriptures behind that. And I don't know why the media doesn't pick up on that, but you know, I know why the media doesn't pick up on that, because they're told not to.
That's another thing. They're just been yeah.
Well, you know, these people who call themselves reporters aren't really reporters. They're just readers. That's all they are. They read what they're given.
Right.
And that's just about it. So
it's such a disservice. You know, every time I go into town and I see people, nice American people, smart American people, entrepreneurs, children, you know, their grandchildren, it makes me very sad deep down, because I realize that they're in jeopardy and that we've been put in harm's way here by these filthy sons of bitches that occupy and infest the D.C. area. And I'll say it point blank. I mean, we have a problem here that's not going to rectify itself unless people stand up and are counted and we have some backup. So it's very sad, really is. And then you're right. I think they're editing and taking out and trying to rewrite history insofar as our Revolutionary War. And you know, I have a lineage to Thomas Jefferson. So, you know, where does that leave me? Watch list. But
there you go.
But it's really sad for me, because when I think about the founding fathers, sure, they weren't perfect, but we had a great country. And I don't think it's going to get better. You know, changing it and rearranging it this way isn't going to make it a better world. It's going to make it a hostile, ignorant, violent world, if you ask me. Just profiling it, I can see it.
Well, I've been asked several times, you know, what's the best government in the world? And, you know, if you look at our original Constitution, it wasn't too bad. It was one of the better ones. And if we could live by it, you know, there were morals involved in it. And what I've seen in the 9 years that I was gone and came back is a complete degradation of morals. And in that, a lot of the political correctness has taken down and changed the face of things, changed the face of reality. Let me put it like that.
Yeah, that's well, it's all propaganda. I always say political correctness will get you killed. And anybody who sits there and goes with the crowd, to me, is shame on you. If you're one of those people that's just sitting there and just afraid, you know, to lose your paycheck or this or that, you have to realize you have to profile and see what's coming down into your future. And if it's not in the highest good, obviously, I don't think it's going to be a benefit to anybody, to be honest, except for these crazies that are trying to control and manipulate. When you mentioned taking off the head as a reflection of the Old Testament, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, in a very obscure passage in the Old Testament, in the Quorum, there is a taking off the head, which is the most extreme form of punishment against a human being. Basically separates the head from the body, so that they can never be joined again.
Right, and it's almost like I've heard the story on an esoteric level that it makes it impossible to reincarnate. Now, I don't know if that's the case or not. I was just curious if there's an esoteric meaning behind it. It does sound kind of permanent, and at the same time, that's the crown and glory. It's interesting how they go after that Godhead.
Yeah, and taking the head off the beast, basically. So.
Wow, and it's so interesting to me, because it seems like the biggest beast of all is this and their agenda. I don't think they understand how, maybe they do. But I see these people are, if you could describe a demonic entity that's infested with this, whatever, archons, whatever you want to call them, boy, it's them.
Yeah, I call it Hillary Clinton.
There you go. Hey, let's talk about her for a little bit, shall we? So since she's trying to run in her illusions of whatever, so what kind of information would you like to share with us? Anything at all?
Well, she has a free ticket to go. She has a get out of jail free card. Obama has put it down to the Department of Justice. There won't be any findings against her. So she's the man. She's the one that's going to be going up against whoever.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare.
Mm.
Really is. Hey, do you have any comment there, Misha?
Yeah, that is a nightmare. Because of some of the things I know about her anyway. So I have a question on civil. It seems like they're trying to start a civil war. With the black and all of it, and all the things, the riots and such as that.
I think we're already at war, Misha. I mean, what do you mean trying to start it?
Well,
we're at war. We're at war. They're at war in the United States. We're at war overseas. We're at war. It just hasn't been called war.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, it's in motion. There's no doubt about it. And it seems to me like it's a frequency war, spiritual war, you name it. They brought it. It's just like everything, It's all a maelstrom of whatever at this point in the continuum. There's no doubt about it. Well, once again, I guess the resolution or how to resolve such a thing would be to stand up and be counted. You either fight it, you either stand up and have backup and fight it, or you remove yourself and get out of the way.
Well, let's put it like this. If a black man gets shot in the streets, what happens? The community raises hell and gets out in the streets and does something about it. Mm-hmm. If a white man gets shot in the streets, what happens?
Nothing. Yep.
There it is. There it is.
Who's got the bigger mouth and who's willing to go into the streets? That's what it boils down to, right?
Who's got balls?
I was just going to say that. Yeah. Who's got the guts to stand up?
Right. I think honestly, if we had a majority of people outside the White House saying out, it would happen at some point in the continuum. I mean, what are they going to do? Impale everybody?
People, as I walked down the street and I had my Vietnam veteran hat on in the States, people would come up to me and thank me for my service, and I'd thank them for getting us the hell out of there. And that's, it took the people getting in the streets to get us out of Vietnam. That's right. What it took. Had they not been in the streets, who knows how much longer we would have been there and how many more of American sons and daughters would have been killed. And it's the same thing right now. And until they get into the streets, you don't have to get into the streets in a violent manner. You just need to get up and get in their face. Mm-hmm. But if you can't do it from your couch, you can't do it from your couch, and you can't do it from your kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I see a lot of people not willing to look in this direction, and I understand a lot of them are programmed. Maybe they're just fear-based. Who knows what their whole issues are? But at this point, I think it's really important that people start making choices and decide what they want in the highest good for themselves and their families. Considering that I feel like I'm under red alert all the time now here in America. The energetic here in this country is so, to me, it feels really staticky and it doesn't feel right. It's kind of like I'm just getting a red alert in my own center, so I'm very, very radar oriented. So that's just my own antenna. And I'm wondering if other people are picking up on it or, they seem to be oblivious. A lot of people, it's all about Star Wars. And I like Star Wars too, don't get me wrong, but, so it's
well, Americans seem to think it's someone else's job to take care of them.
Right.
And that's what society's done to them, is they put them into a social environment where they're cared for, and they like that, and they don't like to have to get out there and do something to make their own way, to make their own freedoms. Look, America's America because a lot of people sacrificed a lot to make America what it is and to gain their liberties. Liberty isn't given; liberty is earned. And if they don't get out there and work to keep earning that liberty, it's gone. It's that simple.
Exactly. I never thought I would see this day come where this was going to happen. Insofar as this kind of hostility and violence, I always figured everybody would be expanded. The religious issues would all kind of transcend, and everybody would just keep ascending and moving on a very high level of consciousness, I guess is the word. But it just doesn't seem like it's going in that direction at all. It's very unfortunate. Really is. I don't know if you have any comment on that. I was going to ask you also about the high value targets. Can you elaborate on what those are? what that entails?
Guys like me, your highest
No.
your highest value targets are the people who have firsthand information that can harm the cabal.
Okay.
That's their highest value targets. Anyone who has firsthand information on anything. Let's look at a high value target. Vince Foster. Several of those are cited high value targets. We had a lot of high value targets in my time. I had 17 assassinations we did that were high value targets, all that had firsthand knowledge of what was going on during the Reagan-Bush administrations and into the Clinton administration. So, and it all had to do. It was called national security, but really, when we looked into it and after the fact, it really all had to do with they had a little bit too much on the boys.
Mm-hmm. Right. So eliminate the competition to some degree. Let's talk a little bit about your website. Obviously, let's kind of promote where you're at and what you're doing. I know you have a radio station, right?
I have allnews.network. It's a rag and it's a radio station. We have articles that go up on allnews.network, and we also have the podcast feeds. We just finished, as a matter of fact, the audio engineers from Columbia were in here today, speaking out of our new little studio here. We're in here today, and we're working on some of the audio issues we want to get into more live streaming from this studio in January. Right now, the live streaming's being done in the U.S., and I want to make sure that we have an alternative to that, because I see things might not work so well up there. But these Colombian engineers, I played some of the podcasts, explained to them that we're playing these podcasts and doing live, and they were listening to some of them, and they were absolutely flabbergasted as to what was being said and what was going on. They said, we had no idea that kind of stuff's going on up there. Oh my God, I'll never send my child up there. I'll never send my family up there to live. So,
it's pretty sad, but it's so true. It's becoming a very different world. It's like an alternate reality. I swear, when I think about it, it just feels so bizarro sometimes. It feels like I've died and gone to hell, I swear. And it's not even gotten to that point yet,
I know my son was born down here. He's 3 years old now. And when we went through the process to get him his U.S. citizenship so he could come to the United States, his mother thought twice about sending him up there because of the attacks in the schools, reading about Sandy Hook and things like that. And she said, what kind of people dream this stuff up? Who in the right mind would even dream of doing something like that? Look at us down here. We've got revolutionaries, but my God, we leave the children alone. Who goes into schools and does that? And I told her it's just the most evil people in the world are the ones who plan this, and they have absolutely no regard for life, none whatsoever.
I agree. Yeah, seems to me like also a slow bleed, a slow kill, a slow death. I mean, right down to all the poisons and toxins. I can go on and on about atmosphere and chemtrails and everything else they do that's just poisoning our environment and the people in general. But it's really it's reached, I think, critical mass. What about the internet going down? You kind of touched on that a little bit, but do you see this possibility of perhaps a more than a censorship, but possibly the whole internet just going down so that we're not able to communicate?
Well, they just passed the law in the United States very, very quietly this week. The Senate and Congress did, and along with the budget, they stuck the new CISPA law in. So it's done. It's a done deal there. The president has a turn off switch, has control. So that's done.
Can't we get one of those for him?
Yeah.
Turn off switch. I'm telling you, it just amazes me how just a small group of people can be so detrimental to the world.
Well, we've actually down here, I've applied for a shortwave license.
Nice.
And so one of the things that I was able to buy in the United States from NASA on their when they were rebuilding their NASA studios is satellite transceivers also. So, the cost of satellite is huge, but at least we'll have that in the studios here that we're building. That's going to take some time because that gets pretty expensive. And the short wave is going to take some time because those transceivers and the equipment's expensive. But, at least I have the start there, and we can figure out how to and how, if need to, grow that.
Right. Yeah. And it seems to me like the cost of living would be cheaper down there, or is it, what's it like?
Well, I'm renting a two-story house, and this is on the coast, about an hour from the beaches, and it's hot as hell here. But my house up in Medellin, and the farm is on the interior and up in the mountains, and it's very pleasant there, never hot, never cold. But in wherever you go here, you can look at about the third the cost of living. I mean, this two-story house is about 2,400 square feet, 2,600 square feet, and it costs $400 a month.
Oh, geez, that's awesome. What about the political status? I mean, how is it down there? Are people welcome there? Are Americans welcome down there?
Until a lot of them get here. Once a lot of Americans get to a country and come into a country, they make themselves unwelcome. And then you have things like Century 21 popping up, trying to increase the bucks and the commissions and make the cost of living very high. That's what happened to Costa Rica, and it's happening in Panama right now. The cost of living in Costa Rica is equal or greater than the United States. I had property there that I purchased in '78, and I ended up selling that a few years back because property prices went so high. Now Panama, after the Panama invasion, everything was real cheap. Now you have a lot of stars that have gone into the mountainous areas and so forth, and they've paid top dollar for things. And you have Century 21 there, you have Remax there, and they've destroyed the economy because even the people there can't afford to buy homes because their salaries don't equal what these real estate companies have valued homes at.
Well, that's a shame. I know the guerrilla economist touches on Panama a lot, or used to. So basically, it's so inflated that it's you have to have money to really move there anyway.
Yeah, you've got to have money. Down here in Colombia, it's safe. I've been down here for 9 years. People know who I am. They know I was with the government. They know I was with the CIA. I mean, the majors, and I have a colonel from the police that lives on the corner. We've had a few glasses of wine and talked about things. The revolutionaries don't bother you if you don't bother them. That's really what it comes down to. These revolutionaries down here, and are one of their big jobs is drug trafficking, and so you have the drug trafficking trade going on down here. And what happened was the missionaries would come down, and the government, and missionaries and teachers would tell the locals, if you know anyone that is dealing in drugs, turn them in. And those are the people getting shot and kidnapped. So if you mind your own business, they're not going to bother you, especially if you're going into a tourism area like Medellin and into Cartagena, right on the beach. Beautiful. The old city, the old Cartagena, Spanish town, beautiful. And, it's owned by the drug lords. And the last thing that they want are problems there because the tourism industry pays them well. They own all those apartments and those large buildings, and they launder their money through those huge buildings, and through the tourism trade. So that they pretty well have given orders to the FARC and to the AUK and to the other revolutionaries down here, and they call them revolutionaries. Some call them terrorists. I don't know. I know a lot of them. I've had beers with them, talk trade with them, but you don't bother them, they won't bother you.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. Do you think at some point, if we ever go into this, which I'm sure it's just a matter of time, to a point where we have a lot of conflict in the streets and Americans decide they want to go, whether it's north or south of the border, Do you think these borders will be closed off? Do you think it's some point Canada won't allow Americans to come in, or do you see that coming in?
Oh yeah, and then the United States just passed a law that if you're not up to date on your taxes or you have any tax issues, you can't get a passport, or when you go to the airport, you can't leave. If you already have your passport, they take it from you.
Mm-hmm.
So and then there's the no-fly list. Oh sure, I don't see them allowing you to leave, but I would say this. If you're even considering it, you should take language lessons for either Spanish or French, or for any country you're considering going to. If you're going north, you're in pretty good shape because Canada has English, but it does have French too, French Canada. If you're coming south, it's mostly Spanish folks, and if you think you're going to come down here with absolutely no Spanish and make a go at it, you're wrong. It's very easy, a 6-week course in Spanish. Even the internet has basic Spanish courses where you can learn tourist Spanish and then refine that once you get here.
Right. Yeah. There's Rosetta Stone. What about if somebody gets on a no-fly list and they really want to get away? Can they privately contract a plane and fly out?
I left.
So how'd you do that?
I was on no-fly list. I was on watch list.
How'd you do it?
As a matter of fact, when I came back into the country after the birth of my son to get him legal, and I was held by immigration, and the federal court put me in prison for 11 months for doing that. They said in the DHS report, it said that Mr. Tatum, we tracked Mr. Tatum out of Fort Lauderdale Airport. He contracted a plane, flew to the Bahamas, and from there disappeared. We have no idea where he went. For 9 years, he was gone.
Nice spoof, Chip.
when I went to the embassy to turn myself in, they said, "Who are you?" And I told them, they said, "You're here in Colombia."
That's funny. Well, not so funny, but
I want to go back to the States and get my son legal. Well, who? And they said, "Well, can you come back tomorrow?"
Oh wow, jeez.
So
technically speaking, if where there's a will, there's a way.
There's look, a boat. I mean, it's a 90-minute boat ride from Miami to Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
Then you fly wherever you want.
Yep, that's a good point you make right there. What about and I know this is a real strange question, but what about Russia? What about moving? What would you say to Americans who thought about moving to Russia? Do you think that's a bad move?
Yeah, I probably would not do that.
Okay. I just had to ask. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they'd let me do that, but there's some countries that we had ops against, and I'm kind of on a persona non grata.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, but Russia's a tough place. It's a tough country to live in, and it's going to become tougher as he stomps down things. You don't really have those values and freedoms in Russia that we have in the United States, and a U.S. citizen going there and opening their big mouth is going to get themselves in trouble.
Mm-hmm, that would make sense. Well, also, we're looking at the same kind of scenario, not the same, obviously, but we are getting our freedoms and rights infringed upon here in America. So who knows what it's going to be like 10, 20, 30 years in the illusion of, if there'll even be a remnant of an American flag, right?
Yeah, I don't even know if we'll be speaking English in the United States by then.
Yeah, no kidding, really. It's interesting. I don't even want to think about it on that level, but man, it's been wonderful to have you on. We have about 10 minutes plus or minus, Chip. Is there anything you wanted to add to the conversation tonight? Anything you want to tell our listeners to prepare for? Anything that you feel is important and significant?
I will tell everyone, get yourself a gun, get yourself armed to protect yourself, not to use offensively, but to use defensively. You really are going to need that. Mm-hmm. Prepare your family. Become a prepper. I mean, it doesn't cost a lot to become a prepper, folks, to be prepared for things. And I would say this, if you're listening, go talk to 3 people you don't know and every day about how you feel, about what you see, about what you think. 3 people a day. And if you convince one of those to go talk to 3 people and one of those to go talk to 3 people, boy, what a wonderful thing you've done toward abating what is going to come. You know, and you know, you don't have to get out in the streets yourself, but people are going to have to get out in the streets. You're just going to have to do it to stop this, because it's not going to happen any other way. As long as you're fat, dumb, happy, and on the couch, you're going to end up fat, dumb, happy on a couch sitting in the junkyard somewhere.
Corpse. Probably. I would say corpse. I hate to say it like that, but you know, insofar as the global agenda goes, obviously this isn't just happening here in the U.S., but it seems like the United States is a hot spot for this invasion. We're seeing it all over Europe right now. Everything's being, you know, obviously
destabilized, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
the whole world is gone into destabilization,
right.
And that's why I called this an American Spring, because you know that it's a term that's been used overseas, and it's something that's real, and it's something that's going to happen. Right. You have the gangbangers, you have all these refugees coming in, and you know, shit's going to hit the fan basically, and it's going to happen this spring, late spring.
I totally agree, and be prepared. What about currency? Any insight insofar as what to have extra silver, maybe, or?
You know, precious metals are always a good move as long as you buy right. You have to make sure you buy right, or you can you know, lose any advantage you have. And you know, if you're thinking about having a bar, you know, as opposed to coins, you know, there's a big difference there. How do you spend a bar? You know, so there are a lot of things to look at when you buy currency, or when you buy precious metals and want to trade in that. I would say try to buy metals that are of reasonable weight and size that can be negotiable.
That makes sense. And once again, we're just about out of time here. Chip, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I hope to have you back again. You're just such a resource of information. I appreciate all that you do. And you stay safe over there, too. And Misha, did you have any questions before we wrap up over here?
I did have just one, because of my background with the ET and all that. I'd like to know, there was, and I can't even think of what his name is, the scientist that said that there will be lots of false flags at the end times and everything. He said, but the last false flag that they'll do is an alien invasion. Do you have anything to say about that?
Duck.
You know what? I think the alien invasion is this Islamic invasion that's happening. I think those are the aliens.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with off-worlders, but you know what I mean. It's.
Well, you know, they are aliens. I mean, when you look at it, they're, you know, definition. You have to look at definitions and how information is passed down. A lot of time, information passing down to people when they say aliens, you know, we might think it's one thing when it's another. Have to be.
That's right.
Okay. Interesting.
That's a good point you make there, Chip. And also, I know we didn't really touch too much on the Pegasus files, but what's the latest on the Pegasus files?
They live. They're liquid. And they, you know, the Pegasus file, chiptatum.com. I try to get to it and post more information. I just reposted the article on the political class, and that was written in 1991. That is so on target today that people should read that. Yeah, I encourage everybody to go to your website at chiptatum.com and get in there and take a good look. And also tune into your show. Now, are you hosting your own show? I haven't been because I was sick. In January, I'll start doing my Hump Day Report, 10 a.m. every Wednesday on the Hump Day Report. It's just a 1 hour show where I bring people up to date on the happenings of the week. Well, stay safe over there. It's been an honor to have you on. I really appreciate you, Chip. I can't even talk tonight. I swear to God, Chip. Well, okay, so I can spit it out again. And I do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, especially Misha. Thanks for joining us. It's been great to have you join in as well. And also,
thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. And please stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dundry and Becky coming up next to sell you on tonight from Down Under, as they always do with their very good show, awesome show, I guess. What else do I have here? I guess we're just about out of time here. There was one thing I was going to mention, and I just can't think of it right this second here. Anything else down the road for you? Are you writing right now, or what are you doing? I'm writing a third book, and that's going real slow, but it'll be out this year. Okay. What's the title? I haven't come up with a title yet. Okay.
I just don't know where to go with that. I'm not sure of the full content of it either. So I have to go back and look at the archives and see what's past the 25 years.
Oh, I see.
Oh, yes.
So you have to wait, huh?
Yeah, they're kind of touchy that way.
Well, you're very, you do honor a lot of things. I mean, you really do go by the protocol to some degree. You're pretty good about that. I'm surprised they gave you such a hard time.
Well,
Do you know what I mean? I mean, but you are complying to some degree. That's what I'm trying to say.
well,
So,
it's called self-preservation, Solaris.
right. Well, nobody's trying to.
I know what they're able to do, and you know, I don't think that they want me underground because of that insurance policy, but they sure want to make life uncomfortable for me.
Right. They'll try to make you miserable. Well, I'm glad you're in a safe area right now. And once again, I do appreciate you being on the show. Is there anything else you want to conclude? I did want to mention, I guess we don't have time to talk about it, but the MP blast, if that does happen, do you see that coming down the pike as some kind of sabotage?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's, they don't test those weapons for nothing.
Okay. And when that would be deployed, would that be coming from our military or someplace else?
I would say it would be a great false flag, them claiming that someone else did it, but we do it ourselves to give them the opportunity to take down grids.
Okay. All right. That's a good thing to point out then. Well, I want to thank you so much again for joining us tonight. It's been awesome. And I think we're just about out of here. I know that little timer is going to give up. Misha, is there anything else you want to add real quick before we sign out? There we go. Well, thank you again, Chip. It's been awesome to have you on. And Misha, thank you for joining us too. And thanks again, everybody. You have a safe
Chip.
and happy Christmas, Yule, solstice, whatever you celebrate. Be safe and be watchful. Thank you.
Good night, all.
Night.